It's me, Maddie, and today I wanted to have a little talk about my experiences with anxiety disorder. This is a pretty common topic these days. A lot of people are being diagnosed with mental health issues, and I think it's just super important to open up a conversation about it and have this be a positive place for people who need help or just want to hear how it affects everyday life if you don't really understand it. I was first diagnosed with anxiety when I was 14 years old after having my first panic attack, which lasted several days. I had always been an anxious child, but I had never really suffered with a major decline or outburst of anxiety. But coming home from grade 9, it was my first week. I think it was literally my second day of grade 9. I was walking home from school, literally got to the end of my block and had the biggest, still to date, panic attack I've ever had. And I think it was because it was my first one and I didn't really understand what was happening, that it was so bad. But I suffer, just to explain a little bit, from generalized anxiety disorder. There's no social aspect related to it, as I am a performer and I do not get stage fright whatsoever. It's just a complete random, I get panic attacks out of nowhere. But it does tend to be a more stressful, transitional periods of my life. I do suffer during my panic attacks with derealization. Now, derealization is something that a lot of people actually suffer from without even realizing it. So the easiest way to explain derealization to someone who hasn't experienced it or has never heard of it is if you were to, let's say you were very, very groggy when you wake up, and that feeling of almost like having a film over your eyes where everything still feels like that dreamlike state and like nothing's really real, nothing's really weird. But you know, what's the David goes to the dentist or whatever and he's like, is this really real? That is derealization. That's what it feels like. And for me, it's a terrifying experience because I'm someone who likes to be very in control of her own body at all times. So it's a terrifying feeling for me, and for lots of people who suffer with it. But as I was saying, I was first diagnosed when I was 14, and decided not to go immediately onto the prescription path. There's lots of other ways you can cope with anxiety. If you are having anxiety, there's different booklets you can read, obviously like self-help books, as well as just basic meditation, exercise, diet, which doesn't work for everyone, but it worked for me for a while, and that was my coping mechanism, was kind of being in shape and practicing all those elements in my everyday life. Now, I was fine for several years, had a couple flare-ups here and there. Now, grade 12 year, which just happened for me, I just graduated this past year. I'm only 18, but this past year, around March, I was in Europe on a trip, and I don't know what triggered this, if it was just we were getting closer to graduation and I wasn't sure what I want to do with my life, or if it was just generally just a lot of culture shock for me. But I was in, what country were we in even? We were in Italy, in Venice Quarters, in like the big square there. I can't remember the name for the life of me right now. But I just got this massive panic attack and I just couldn't ground myself and make myself feel in my body. Grounding, just for all of you who might not know, is kind of grabbing certain things. Sorry, I keep touching my nose. It's like, I have allergies and it's itchy, but it's kind of finding things that will keep you down to earth. For example, if you have something really soft, like you put your focus into that, or if there's like a certain thing that you can smell or see, just like kind of things like that, which is one of my biggest coping mechanisms when I'm having a panic attack due to my derealization, is like finding that one thing that's like, oh, this is real. But I wasn't able to do that, and I just couldn't get into myself, and it was a 10-day trip, and that happened on about the third day of the trip, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse the whole trip, to the point where I was missing out on so much because I was just trying to make myself sleep at any chance I had, just so I could kind of be out of all the rest of the world and just in my head sleeping, which is the worst way I could have spent that trip, because I mean, there was amazing things, and I do appreciate that trip so much and the people who helped me with the opportunity to be there, but I do feel like there were some things that maybe I didn't lean into the hardest because of the headspace that I was in. However, when I got home, I thought I was fine for about a week or two, and I just kept like, the knot in my stomach just kept growing and growing and growing, to the point where it literally like felt like my stomach was twisting anywhere I went, anything I did. One night though, this is when my boyfriend was still living in a different city than I was, a much busier city than we currently live in. I went to visit him overnight, and we woke up the next morning and went to get breakfast at Denny's. And it wasn't even busy in there, it wasn't ridiculously loud or over like sensory, but I just had the biggest panic attack, to the point where I couldn't finish my meal, told my boyfriend not to finish his, and that we needed to get the check and get the fuck out of there. So that's exactly what we did, and I'm so lucky to have such an understanding partner, but we got out of there and we were just like, not today. So we went outside, and I kind of caught my breath for a couple seconds, but the feeling was still there, and I just wasn't okay, and I was still kind of losing it. And we went to go into JYSK or Yisk, or however you say it, which is like an equivalent to IKEA if you don't know what that is. And we literally got in the car and like drove over into the parking lot, and I just couldn't do it. Like, I couldn't even open the car door. I couldn't open my eyes. I just felt like I was spinning and spinning and spinning, and this feeling of like nothing's real, everything's fake, I'm gonna die, like just these terrible like end of the world doomsday type thoughts. So we ended up going back to his apartment, and it just still was terrible, to the point where I just had to go back to my house. So he drove me back, and I spent a lot of time thinking that it was gonna get better without really doing anything to make it better, and just like locking myself in my bedroom and not talking about it to anyone, and like not doing anything to really move forward from that point, which is like one of the biggest mistakes in my life, because it messed up a lot of stuff. My grades started slipping because of it. I wasn't paying attention. I was missing a lot of classes because I was sleeping right through them. And it caused a lot of conflict in like interpersonal relationships I had, like not even just romantic relationships with my boyfriend, but with parents and stuff like that. So it was really difficult, and it was a really difficult thing to finally admit that like I needed to book a doctor's appointment, and I needed to go, and I needed to talk about it again, which was definitely the best move I have ever pulled in my life. I was able to go to my doctor, who's very sweet and kind and understanding about mental health and kind of all the things that come complication-wise with that. And we decided to put me on Cipralex, which is an antidepressant. I started on a really low 5 milligram dosage, which I upped to 10 milligrams after like kind of like the trial period. And I've been on that for about, what would it be, like 4 months now? And honestly, the first month was hell. And like, it's true when they say like it gets worse before it gets better, because I was so anxious and like so upset, and it just felt like it wasn't getting better, and that like no medication would make me feel better, and nothing in life would make me feel better. But after time, it truly helped me come out. I was able to go to busy spaces again, which I had been avoiding like the plague. My attention span in school came up so much so, to the point where when I graduated, I was only in 2 classes, but both my classes I had an above 90 average in. and just like really helped me kind of pull myself into myself. And now this doesn't go to say that like medication will fix all your problems. There's still things that I have to deal with in days that are worse than others, but I am just trying to tell you guys my story. This is not trying to push you into medication at all. If you can do without medication, good on you. I wish I could. But this is just my story and how I've been able to deal with things. And like I said, I just want this to be a safe place where we can come together and kind of talk about mental illness and not be afraid of it at all. Because at the end of the day, it's your path and it's something that will like be your story forever, even if one day you somehow grow out of it or overcome it, whatever fears or anxieties that you have, it is still a point in the road of how you got to where you are. And I'm forever thankful that I've been through it, because I feel like as a human it's made me so much more empathetic and like in touch with myself and with others, and I really feed off energies a lot more now, and it's amazing, but sometimes it is pretty terrible because it can be really exhausting, especially with the jobs I work. I work part-time as a barista / server and part-time as like a clothes sale retail worker. So it can be draining dealing with people all day and everything, but you gotta keep your head up and you gotta keep moving and working on yourself. I do therapy. I'm obviously on my medications. I have amazing friends, coworkers, everything that I can talk to, and it's just so unique and so special, and I'm so thankful for everyone in my life. But yeah, so that's my first video on this topic and the first video that I'm going to be uploading on this channel. If you guys want to subscribe, like, you know, kind of keep up with my story, this is just going to be a place where I kind of do some sit downs and have more serious talks like this, but also kind of get ready with me, kind of vlog type videos. So I'm super excited and I hope to see you guys soon. Love you all so much. Give everyone a big hug for me that you know, and I'll see you guys next time.